When I took,
Oh, yeah.
I was at 85 and she was like, I don't like that.
Yeah, because what happens is when they're in an agitated state,
Yeah.
and you're going, because you're going up incrementally, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, is, we're trying to find that correct number,
Yeah.
so we don't just go in there guns blazing.
Yeah.
And that's what we call the redirect.
Mm-hmm.
So then, one of two things here, either she was just getting frustrated because the gradual,
Yeah.
or she was getting frustrated because she didn't want to disengage from the activity. Oh, leg day yesterday, so I'm sorry. So, one of two things. One, if you feel uncomfortable with just the level that you're at, and obviously 85 isn't working, so that tells me we have 42 levels left, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't want to worry about a redirect, that's when muzzle comes into play. Or two, I don't know, I call it up and away. I talked to you guys about this. Yeah, where I just shorten it, and if the dog goes up, they can't get to me because if they go up, I have it short enough that they go up with them. And if they try to go sideways, they can't reach me. So then I'm like this, stressed out, and then I'm just going up and I'm just ready for them until I get them to cut the crap.
Yeah.
And then once that's done, I relax. Then try to continue. They trigger and repeat the process. And I've been to 127. So it's not common, but it's not uncommon. Especially when we're doing reactivity and stuff. Especially with because she's a pit mix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pitties take things to a different level, and I love pitties. I'm not trying to talk crap about them. But when you're dealing with a reactive pitty and a reactive like German Shepherd, very different animals. Okay, so not uncommon. Anything else?
No, I just think this week she just wasn't as good with me per se. I don't know about him, but like for me, I just felt like I had to click her.
She was fine with me a lot better once I started, once I did the recircling. She kept going, and then block and a half later, she'd pull away, so I'd recircle, and just repeat that.
The only other question I have too, so like I am a fast walker, so I've started to slow down, and I notice now that I slow down, when I'm walking, she's still like a little bit ahead of me, and I'm more conscious now because I'm trying to get her where she's here, and so I like feel bad because I'm like in a weird, I don't know, I feel like I'm in a weird position where I'm like trying to slow my walking down. I don't know if she's okay with it or like she just wants to keep me at my pace, you know what I mean? Like
She's just not following you.
Yeah.
That's just her. So even if you're walking like super slow, it should not matter to the
Yeah,
dog.
she wasn't doing that this week, and I was ticking her, I was redirecting.
What was the number?
I mean, as high as I got was 85, but the number that I was pretty much staying with when we were up at his lake house was like 50, 55, which is higher. I mean, we've been at like 30, 35.
Sure.
So it was more.
Yeah, which doesn't make, I'm sorry, it does make sense because you're in a new-ish environment where somewhere I'm assuming she hasn't been as frequently.
She was there for the first 3 months of her life.
Okay.
That we've had her.
But it's also like in the nature, so there were
outdoors
birds and
all
so
this
I was
stuff.
giving her the benefit of the doubt where I was like, there's animals, there's other stuff that's like
Right.
around.
So when it comes, like, let's say reactivity, not counting, when it comes to the obedience stuff, it's just a matter of making it important enough for them to adhere to it despite the environment. So yes, I would agree, with squirrels and rabbits and raccoons and deer and all that stuff, like it's gonna be more distracting for the dog. That just tells me higher number, right? Which you did, you went 50, 55,
Right.
but then that tells me just not high enough. Because from everything I've seen here with the walking stuff, she clearly has the heel concept. It's a matter of, do you respect the heel concept in the setting that we're in?
Right.
Okay, so then, I know I gave you guys my 3-tap rule, my 3-correction rule, is I start that in the beginning to get people comfortable, to give them a structure. I break that rule all the time, because I can read within the moment like, yep, you don't need 30, you just need 65, and I just jump straight up. But for my owners, I tell them, you gotta gradually go up, because you have to develop your feel, you have to develop your eye, and then just your understanding of like the dog, right? So if you put her at 50, and you start walking, she forges, and you turn and you tap, and she runs to your side and forges, you can actually just bump it right away. Okay, going forward, and then I would just go to 60. Take one turn, tap, boom, and then she keeps going forward, 70, right? Because especially now, it doesn't take long for a dog to learn the heel concept. Is once you hit that magic number, you're gonna get that first correction in, and all of a sudden she's like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, now you remember what you're supposed to do, right? Because the consequence was
Yeah.
was to be removed.
And I think that's what I think maybe that's part of the problem is like with the instance we just had, like we were at like 35 and then it was like I'm all the way at 80, you know what I mean? Like that was such a big jump. And I didn't jump just to 85.
Right, you had to.
I mean, I kept going, but she lunged at me and then I was like, I'm not cool with that. And I think she lunged because she was irritated by the
Yes.
fact that I kept checking her to like, we were redirecting, but then it was like the dog was still across, we hadn't passed the dog still.
Yes, yes.
Still.
That to me isn't making the dog aggressive to you.
Yeah.
It's very common. Did you guys ever see Rambo?
Mhm.
There's like a part where like he like I think was cauterizing like a balloon or something like gunpowder and exploded, right? And so like you know this pain and discomfort, like it has to go somewhere, and you're the closest thing.
Yeah.
Because people clamp down, they bite, right? Like or if you see movies like they give people something like a sock to bite on,
Yeah.
right? Because like this is gonna suck. It has to go somewhere. It's the same thing for the reactivity stuff. When you're at that 85, not only is she agitated and frustrated because of like you said within the context,
Mhm.
but you're up at that 80. You're 3/4 of the way
Yeah.
up the power of the collar.
Yeah.
Is now that discomfort has to go somewhere,
Yeah.
which is why I covered the up and
Yeah.
away, because I was like, this is most likely going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But it's easy to get caught up, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
in that moment, like you're not thinking up and away in this
No.
because you're thinking of this, and then it's like, holy crap!
Yeah.
Oh, that's where
and
up
that's what
away
happened. I
comes from.
clicked it, and then I was like, oh, I didn't have a reaction here. I just was like, well, what the? All
Yes.
right, well,
Yeah.
here you go, Dad. I don't want her anymore.
Yeah.
I was
So-
more like, I didn't want her to get agitated with me, so I was kind of like, well, maybe if she goes to someone
But
else.
just let you know, she did take the dog back a block later. and
I
said,
did.
need to take the dog back and I need to walk her.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
She did take the dog back a block later.
Oh,
I
I
took the
see.
dog-
In that
I did-
moment, you switched
Yeah.
off.
Yes, and then I took her back, she goes, give me her back, like I need to be able to walk her.
I can't be afraid of her, and I can't, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that
Sure.
was part of my relationship with her and my other dog before, is that I had that like fear where I'm like, I'm just gonna leave her, like I can't do that. So I was like, I'll take her back. But I was in the moment, I was kind of like,
Yeah, no. No judgment here.
yeah,
I get it. I mean, I've been bit,
Yeah.
scar here, scar here, scar here, scar over here too. Probably others I don't remember anymore. For me, it's my job. Like, it's kind of just somebody put it as assumption of risk. It's like becoming a cop and not wanting to be shot at. But if you're a cop, you're going to be shot at. Like,
yeah.
It's just the truth of it, right? So that's why I was like, muzzle's perfectly fine as well.
Mhm.
Because it's just one less thing to think about.
Yeah.
And then
We had been doing your idea of giving her her
With
food
the
in
food
it,
through
and
her.
she's taking it very well.
good.
We still haven't put it fully on her.
Sure.
Like we still were trying to just.
I even did that, and I didn't have any food in it, and I just put it up there, and she went and smelled in it, and I was able to put it up to her mouth, and she didn't like freak out to
Put it
rip
on.
it off at all, or anything like that. So-
Okay. Yeah, so continue with the counter conditioning.
Yep.
Once you get to the point where it's like pushing boundaries with it,
Mhm.
almost always the dogs still struggle with it. It's just much easier to get them over it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, and that's what the calls for. I call it force conditioning, where it's like, all right, like I walk in sometimes and the owner's in zero muzzle conditioning, and it's like, all right, well, it's either you waste $200 or, I just make this happen.
Mhm.
It's not ideal, so I always encourage everybody to take the time to muzzle condition. And then when she's eating from that muzzle, does she keep her mouth in there, or will she pull out the
No,
chew?
she
No,
stays in it.
she stays in there the whole time.
The Ziploc, the Ziploc bag or whatever, she had her mouth like fully in there.
Okay.
She tries to go get every little piece.
Yeah, like
But she'll only pull it out if she drops a piece on the floor. She'll go grab that and come
Yeah.
right back into it.
Gotcha.
But she did that automatically, like that. As soon as you said that, she did that.
Gotcha. So one thing that you can do is, like, let's say she's eating, and I understand that if she's eating, she drops a piece of kibble, but if she pulls her mouth out to get that piece of kibble, put it away.
Mhm.
You
The
want her,
food away.
yeah,
Yeah.
you want her to just keep that mouth in there. I don't care what's coming out. Once she's done eating, and then she's like probably sitting around and she pulls out to eat the rest, I'm fine, 'cause that's done. Okay. So yeah, like, so 'cause sometimes the dogs will like take pieces, and I know she's not doing that, but they'll take a few and they'll start chopping.
Yeah.
And then like the owner will accept that, and like, no, the dog clearly is like learned a loophole.
Yeah.
I was like, I put it away. In this case, I know it's an accident, but I use every little thing, because then she's gonna be like, crap, when I pull my face out of that muzzle too soon, food disappears.
Yeah.
And it'll just help advance
Got
that
it.
a bit quickly,
Okay.
more quickly, right? But good job on that.
And then we've done the cage, like he got home from work today and he's
Oh,
been
yeah.
trying to do it, where he's told her to get in the cage and he's closed it, and then he lets her sit in there, I don't know, 5 minutes, you know, just to see what she's doing. She's sitting,
Mhm.
she's not going crazy.
Mhm.
We left the room, was it last week maybe, and she kind of started plucking, you know, you could hear her kind of plucking
Okay.
her, yeah.
Yeah.
So we were like trying to just see if she'll just go in there.
She'll get in by herself
Yeah.
fine. I'll say stay, I'll close it, and then she'll be like, okay, why the fuck am I in here right now?
Yeah.
So it's just more of me being able to be like, just stay there, you're okay, you're walking around. And then she heard that noise, I did not.
Mhm.
And I was just trying to keep her there for 5-10 minutes at a time, just making sure she's used to it, she's okay.
Mhm.
Put her toy in there, and then I walk out.
Because again, we bought a cage and she's not using it, it's like you're wasting money on stuff.
No,
Yeah.
she will use
I mean,
it.
it's- And like, 'cause I understand, like, let's say for some people, like, they're like, well, I don't really need dog meat in the kennel, because like, it's the only dog, whatever. I'm like, yeah, but it's clearly a problem.
Mhm.
You know, like, especially if there's other problems over here, like, this problem is still like indirectly related to these other problems, right? So you're just like tackling everything.
Mhm.
Did you, and so you did 5 to 10 minutes at a time, and she was collared up, or was it just like
No.
a general
No, she
enclosure?
didn't have her e-collar on or anything, she just was regular.
Okay, so, you could literally just throw her in there for 4 hours,
Mhm.
if you're gonna be home.
Mhm.
Okay, so, because if you do the 5 to 10 minute, like, it's gonna be months.
Oh, no, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, for you, because I think I talked to you about layering a remote behind the kennel command or
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah.
Did you want to go over that, or is there anything in particular you want to go over today?
Whatever's next step on.
Yeah, I mean, like, we could go over more, like, I mean, we should probably start getting her in the kennel. I feel like
Yeah.
that's probably, Thanksgiving's coming up, and we're like, what are we gonna do with her?
Oh, sure, yeah, are you guys having people over, or?
No,
We're
we're
not,
leaving.
yeah, we're going somewhere, and
Sure.
so
So
we,
but that won't, her in the kennel won't stop her separation anxiety, correct?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Having her in the kennel will not stop her separation anxiety.
Oh,
Even if we leave and I have her in the kennel, she'll tear apart the bed I have in there with her,
Uh-huh.
and she'll shit in it.
Sure, okay,
I know for
So-
a fact she will. I don't know how to stop those things.
yeah, so one.
Just many showers.
Don't
with
put
her, you know.
anything in.
Yeah, you don't have to put anything in there, okay, so like, I'm not opposed to it, but if the dog is gonna destroy it, don't worry about it.
Okay.
The pooping thing is the outcome of the stress or whatever, right?
That is, yeah, 100%.
So it's not that the kennel addresses the separation anxiety, but it's the work that you're gonna put behind it that's gonna address the separation anxiety. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let me grab a kennel real quick. I'll grab one and bring one in here, because I have my next plan after you in here as well. So it's a little easier. I'll be right back.
you're okay.
What?
You're okay. You're
All
okay.
right, my employee's reading right now.
Okay.
Oh, what's the number at currently?
It's just a, like a bed.
Oh, sorry, what's your number?
Oh, sorry, it's at, 30 right now.
Good with people, right?
Yes.
Okay. Come here. So your collar's fitted correctly, so. I was just thinking about the other day when you said you were 85 and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just seeing if that was the case, but it is not. And this excess, if you like. you
I'm
can-
gonna cut it off eventually.
Yeah, you can cut it. I would give yourself about this much,
Okay.
and when you cut it, you want to round it, because this, if you cut it straight across, has very sharp edges. And then this notch is good, so I'd mark that for her. So kennel anxiety or separation anxiety, because it's only when she's in the kennel, right? Like if you left her alone, like in a room, she'd be
No,
fine.
no, 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 no.
Oh,
no,
okay.
no,
no.
Oh, okay.
If
All
we
right.
leave all together.
All hell breaks loose in my house.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So if I leave, my couch has been destroyed, she's shit in the room,
Yeah.
she does anything she can.
Like, she's definitely, you can tell she's having a hard time.
Alrighty, thank you.
That's a lucky kennel, mine's a right.
Those are the-
Looks like all the straps on the other side.
Maybe we have the same kind.
Oh, I know this. It's just where she has to look at it.
All right, so, Who's gonna go first?
You go first.
Okay.
All right, so here, go ahead and grab your leash. And I'm sorry, what's your number at?
30.
30? Okay. And I'm gonna have you just put a little bit of leash tension, no tapping, towards the kennel. Let's see what she does here. Okay. So she goes in, and immediately out, okay? So what you're gonna do here is, you're gonna be about, yay distance, okay? You're gonna start remoting, with no real direction. Okay, you start remoting, once you start to see her fidget or panic a bit, you're then gonna add some leash pressure towards the kennel. Once she goes in, you're gonna just ease that tension, and the moment you see her trying to come out, you're gonna start remoting again. She's probably gonna flush out, you're gonna keep remoting, a little bit of pressure, until she goes back in, okay? So we turn pressure on until she's inside. Once she's inside, pressure is now off, okay? So tap, tap, tap. I'm going to bump it.
Her tail.
Tap, 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 tap. It's going to hold right there. And I'm going to keep your leash, take a couple steps back. Tap, 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 tap. I'm going to bump your number again.
So you're
Yeah.
gonna go sit out. We don't want you to sit outside.
Tap, 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 tap. Bump it. Tap, 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 tap. Bump it.
Oh, you're gonna lay down?
Tap, 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 tap. Bump it. Tap, tap, tap. Bump it.
So she knows she's supposed to be going back in
Tap,
the.
tap, tap. I'm skipping some steps here. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Tap.
she isn't even.
Yeah, exactly.
She hasn't even moved her, she's.
Yeah, she's not really carrying at the moment. Tap, tap. Bump it. What's the number?
75 right now.
Okay. Tap, tap, tap. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, so you're gonna keep that slow tap happening. Tap, tap. Little leash pressure. Tap, 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 tap. There you go. Ease out. Okay, you're gonna keep the leash in your hand, take some steps back.
Is that typical for dogs to start licking like that?
Yeah, lip licking is a sign of stress.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say she was panting. You're out on a walk, she's panting. That means either relaxed state or venting stress. As she's panting, let's say a dog starts to come by and you see it close, that's loaded tension. Okay, so that means something's on the brain. So that's how you can tell their mental states. And then, like, let's say as the dog's passing, once it finishes passing and then she licks her lips, that would signal or signify like, that stressed me out. Okay, so nothing good or bad. It's just a sign of like whatever just happened stressed me out.
So that's just her being super stressed. I mean, you were hitting her with 75.
Right now she's licking, so she's
Right.
stressed.
Yeah, so now she's being stressed about being within the kennel here and being put under a lot of pressure. And if you look at her face, you see how it looks there? Can you see that? It's from the remoting, okay? So earlier, we were at 30, 35, and you sent her in and she immediately bumped out. I'm like, okay. Then we just started tapping, and the reason why it kept going up is because, like you said, she just was not carrying. So instead of doing a bunch of like 30, 35, right off the bat, I want to make this mean something, okay? So once she hit 75, a little bit easier to get her to go in, but also she went in without the running out, okay? So in my opinion, separation anxiety, one, it's not anything that dogs are born with. Dogs aren't born with separation anxiety, okay? I have dogs that be born with like they're very fearful, very nervous, very anxious, like general anxiety, but not separation anxiety, okay? Separation anxiety is something that's created through the relationship with the owners. It's an attachment issue. So here, what we're doing with the kennel is, one, it keeps her contained because anxiety wants to move. So a lot of dogs will pace, right? And then it grows to like salivating, whining, barking, and then eventually like they're eating drywall. I've seen chewed up doorknobs.
They're urinating.
You know, yeah, like because they're so under stress that they can't like control themselves. So here, when we put her in the kennel and we put pressure behind it, right? Imagine if someone took you and put you in a room with no windows, okay, no way out. how would you feel?
Fuck.
Right? Because he's just been kidnapped, right?
I would be jumping in every wall that can, 100%.
So, with humans, you see how that is,
Yeah.
right? So I think of it similarly for dogs, right? Tap, 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 tap. A little release pressure, tap, tap, right there. Is, right, now you see this here?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have you step towards the kennel. Tap, tap, tap. A little bit more. Tap, tap, tap. Now you can take a step back. Up, tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. Let's go and bump it. Tap, 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 tap. Okay, now you're gonna step in again. Tap, 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 tap. I'm gonna bump it. Tap, 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 tap. I'm gonna bump it. Where you at now? Okay, tap, 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 tap. Bump it. Tap, 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 tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, 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 tap. There you go. All right, tap, yep, good move. Tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. Go and bump it in.
Oh, she's being stubborn.
Tap, tap, tap. What's your number now?
100.
Okay, let me see, let's see. Tap, 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 tap.
She didn't like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Did you just bump it?
No,
No.
I just did really fast.
Oh, okay. I
So-
was like, she didn't like you.
Yeah. So here, what was I saying? Oh, so like person empty, obviously trap, kidnap, stuff like that, right? Is same thing for the dog, kind of, right? When you put them in the kennel, a lot of dogs freak out, and like because they're being contained,
Mhm.
they're not meant to be kenneled.
Mhm.
This is something that we've created so that you can have our dogs, you can potty train our dogs, so on and so forth. So I understand that concept.
She looks scary right now, I'm just gonna say.
No,
No.
she's concerned. Yeah, she's just.
I feel like she's staring at Matt, it's like making me scared of
She's
her.
standing
Yeah.
No, but she's not staring in an aggressive fashion.
there.
No.
No.
She's more of like I need to really think about my life choices right now. So I understand that, right, from dogs, but it's necessary in order for us to have our dogs, in this case, to prevent her from being destructive and prevent that anxiety from snowballing, as I call it, because it just gets worse and worse.
Mhm.
She doesn't have freedoms. She doesn't have rights like you do. You have the right to freedom, right? You're not supposed to be locked up in a room with no windows and the door locked and you can't get out and someone control you, right? But not with the dog. So here, we're essentially saying you have no options unless I tell you you do, okay? So by putting that pressure behind the scent, is you're making it mean something. And then she's like, okay, I'm in here, but I don't want to be in here. So she says, go out, put that pressure back on again, okay? So we're using negative to kind of make this a safe space in the sense that when I'm in here, negative turns off. But then also, she's like, oh shit, every time I run out, this kicks in. So it doesn't even matter if I want to get out, because if I do get out, this kicks in.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So science would term this, in this kind of context, what's called learned helplessness, okay? And what it means is the dog just gives up. And it's kind of like that, but they put it in a negative light. In this sense, if the dog hasn't learned to just cut the crap, you get destructive behavior.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
You need them to think like, oh shit, well this is pointless, because I'm either gonna get remoted, if I get out, if I try to sneak out, if I try to break out, if I throw a fit, if I bark in here, if I'm whining here, blah, 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 like all these consequences. I can't do anything but be calm and relaxed.
Mhm.
and then we don't get the other crap. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So here, I don't want, like, when I used to kennel my dogs, it would be go to your crate and I could leave the door open and come back a couple hours later and still be in there. Or I could come home, open the kennels, not say anything, walk away, make a sandwich and come back, my dogs would still be in the kennel. Because they're like, you opening the door means nothing. Because we know if we step out, we just get remoted. Until you cue the word break or okay or whatever.
How many dogs do you have, how many remotes do you have at home?
Oh, so I had 3 at one time. There was my Chomix, my Pit, and my Chihuahua. And I had one with 2 remotes, one with 2 dogs, one with 1 dog. But now I just have my 2 dogs. So one of my best friends has my Chomix because she's an old lady. So, because my dogs live here.
Yeah.
And then she was like, she's too old to live in the facility. So she lives with family now.
Oh, so you do have a pet?
Yeah, I have a Pit and my Chihuahua. So here, we're doing a couple of things. You know, we put that higher number, putting some meaning behind it, like you want to be in this kennel. And then as I was talking, she's like, I'm done. Starts to come out. And then we kicked in with that pressure. It wasn't enough. And you're like, oh man, she's being stubborn or whatever. Part of that is the mental state. Okay, so one of the things that people don't account for, trainers don't account for when we work with behavior stuff, is you don't just have the physical resiliency of the dog or the physical toughness. You also have to think that dogs, again, bite each other. Like, this is how they just communicate, so they're already, like, their tolerance for discomfort is already fairly high. But lastly, emotional state, okay? So when she's in the kennel, you can see how she's uncomfortable because she doesn't want to be in there. And it puts her under duress, which is on top of her physical toughness and the fact that dogs just bite each other is why the number can end up going so high, okay? So like if I get for instance, I should work with a case right now. It was the dog wouldn't walk. She would just sit there like this shaking. And the owner would pull and pull and the dog would just sit there and plant and shake. The dog would not walk. And by the end of the class I had the dog walking because we just pulled the leash, started remoting, kept going up. And I think we went to as high as 80, 85 before the dog started to move. And the owner was like, holy crap. Because it's not the tough dog. It's not a tough dog. It's not like a pity or anything like that. It's not a Rottie. It's this little healer mix. And I goes, it's because the dog is so scared of walking outside that you need more power to override the fear to make the brain want to move forward. Okay, so it's the same thing here. See how she's panting now? This is venting stress. Okay, so what just happened with the high level remote and the send, and she was just sitting there very awkwardly, right? And you saw it kind of like, it was tension, but it wasn't tension towards you, it was just tension of the context.
It just looked, from here, it looks like she was ready to bite him. Like she just was like, you know.
No.
I don't see her like that, so it's like, for me, I'm like, oh my God, what is she gonna do?
Sure. Like that
Like
look.
right now, she looks like her normal, like, ugh.
Right.
You know?
She sits like an idiot.
Yeah.
So here, now she's letting go of all that just happened right now, okay? Now, this is what I want to see when the dog is in here. I don't want to see tension. There should not be tension, okay?
Yeah.
Now, it's okay to see in the beginning because we have to get them over it, but the dog should only hold on to tension for so long and then to like let that go, okay? So here, one of the best but hardest ways to test dogs with the kennel stuff is you throw in the kennel and you leave the door open. Okay.
Sure, it's like,
Yeah, and I would do this when you have time and when you're gonna be in the immediate area, right? So like, let's say like you're in an office space and you have the kennel set up and you kennel her, same setup, leash and everything, and then you start to walk away, expect that she's gonna wanna follow or leave.
like drop the leash and walk away.
Correct, so like here, let's go down to 75, and you're gonna go to drop the leash and just walk away.
And don't give her any commands.
No.
So.
So this is all implied, okay? So as we wait for her to make a mistake.
If I do this,
Yep,
typically, when she thinks I can't see her, she'll get up.
correct. So like earlier, when you first placed her in there and I said, step back. Do you know why I said step back?
To see if she would follow me.
Close. What happened when she was, when I wanted you to push her back in? What did I have you do instead of
You
stepping
really
back?
had the leash and you were pushing her in that way.
But she was already in.
Oh.
Remember when she was here
Remoting her?
and we wanted her to back off?
Walk into her.
Walk into her,
Oh.
So
okay?
you're thinking if I backed away, she'd try to follow me this way.
Correct, so like when you move in, this is called confrontational pressure. So when I'm facing her and I'm tapping, it pushes the brain to want to move back, okay? When you move back, you give up confrontation and allows the brain to move forward if they want it. So it's not so much that she's following, She's just seeing you take off the pressure, and she's seeing it as an out, okay? So like, if you ever see two dogs posture each other, and then they'll like hold it for a minute, and then you'll see one dog just do this.
Mm-hmm.
The dog is easing the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
When my media guy, I don't know if you saw him coming in, Chad, I had a client out at Independence Park, and he kept moving into me, and I kept moving back. Every time he moved into me, it kept moving back. And he noted, every time that guy stepped into your space, he's like, I kept noticing you like alleviating the pressure and taking that step back, because otherwise you would have been like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was doing it more so just for distance, because COVID,
Yeah.
you know,
Hey,
but
get the fuck out of it.
yeah, and also like it was just really, really close. And it's just taking those steps back to keep that, because it becomes uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? So like when people get into an argument, what happens?
They all come here.
They start coming in closer, right? If you're just standing on the street minding your business and some stranger just comes up to you and is here, you're just like, whoa, like you either might push them back, because moving them backwards alleviates pressure, you might step back, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is, if the person is here, and if you just do this, even though you're just as close, if not closer,
You're just not, you don't have to.
you're not face to face, that it alleviates the pressure, okay? So that's what we're doing here, okay? And we're not doing any words here,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm wanting her to learn, one, with the remote, but also just that body language, okay? So, like, what I would like to see is when I open this gate, she just runs her little butt in there, like without even being told to. She's like, hey, I'm in here,
Yeah.
no problem, right? Because now it means something to her. She's like, man, I don't like that pressure. So the idea here is, if I make her more concerned about going into the kennel,
She won't be.
she's not gonna be caring about coming out of the kennel, which theoretically, we shouldn't see any escalation, okay? Now, and I think I told you about this, where we had a very severe case of this, and the dog ended up needing a bark collar. But as long as he had that bark collar, like he'd just go and lay down, curl up into a donut, and fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
But if he didn't have that bark collar, you would start to see him kind of like little by little, just like biting at the fence and stuff,
Mhm.
okay? So this is the first step, okay? So this, regardless, either this itself will address the issue, or the bark collar comes into play. This sets the foundation for the bark collar.
Mhm.
Okay, so that when the bark collar is present, it's just fooling her into thinking like it's like this one.
Mhm.
But really, it's just a collar that goes off if she barks.
Mhm.
But as soon as if she does any kind of vocalization or something that goes off and corrects her, she's gonna just think like, oh shit. Like,
They're not here, but.
They're not
I'm
here,
still
but yeah,
here,
but stuff can still
yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and come back in. I'm gonna have you pick up this leash here.
And like when she's in there, like, so say we were at home and we're doing this with her or whatever,
Mhm.
and she's doing this, like, this is perfectly normal how she's kind of reacting. We close the kennel. Would we typically, because we have other dogs, like, I just don't want her to be triggered by them either, where it's like,
Right,
do we
right.
just close that door and leave her in
Yes,
that?
right. You don't take any precaution needed.
Yeah.
Okay, you know her better than I do.
Yeah.
Okay, is yes. If you're doing this exercise, because we're giving her the opportunity to bum rush out, is that I would close any doors and then leave the gate open, and then you want to have this leash so that you can step on something and also have something to guide her. But you want the remote to be what makes her go in the kennel,
Mhm.
and not so much that leash pressure.
Mhm.
So once you bumped into that 75, 85 as she was there, and then she started to like buck around, and then you give a tiny bit of pressure and she just ran in, and then she didn't try to run out, right? Because she's like, holy crap, if going in was the answer for shutting down that high pressure, I don't want to
Mhm.
run out and then risk getting hit again,
Mhm.
okay? Now here, when you came back and you picked up the leash, my assumption would be, like with every other dog, is they're gonna see you pick up the leash and think, I'm done.
Mhm.
They're gonna walk forward. Me picking up the leash does not mean anything,
Mhm.
okay? Just like me opening the kennel door does not mean anything.
Mhm.
So, in the home, in my experience, gate open is the most tempting,
Mhm.
but gate closed tends to be like the most problematic.
Mhm.
Because now the dog sees the gate closed and they're like, oh shit, now I'm trapped,
Mhm.
okay? So you can do either or,
Okay.
and if you close it, and you're like, yeah, that's when she really starts to spaz out, then it goes close it, and as the dog starts to paw at the kennel or do any kind of escape motion, is you're tapping. When you do these taps, they're not repeated, you just like, you might give a couple of pops and go, what are you gonna do next?
Mhm.
And if she takes the hits and goes back to pawing again, clearly those hits didn't do anything.
Right.
I might try a couple more, or I might bump it and try again. Until eventually, she's just in the back of the kennel like this, and you might see her look a little spooked, right? Because she's like, holy crap, like, I didn't like that. But every time I try to do this, that happens, so what happens if I don't do it?
Mhm.
And if you look at her here, see how like the way she's sitting and stuff?
Mhm.
She's not comfortable,
Yeah. no.
okay? Any other dog, like the dogs here, when we have our daycare and stuff, we go, we kennel them, they go in and lay down. When we get dogs that come here for the first day, a lot of times they're standing or sitting because they're just stressed out because they're in a foreign environment and they don't know why they're within a truck, within a kennel.
Yeah.
But then once they're here for a couple of days, they learn the structure, you see them going to the kennel and just lay down. That they just go immediately into a resting state, okay? Whereas here, because she's this uncomfortable with the kennel, it's not allowing her brain to go to resting state quite yet, okay? So the way we get over something like this is extended periods of time in the kennel, which why I was saying earlier, I was like, if you're gonna be home for 4 hours working from like the other room, kennel her. And if you can get a little doggy cam now, they're like 25, maybe even 50 bucks. You already got one?
Yeah.
Pop it in there, have it on, and then you have your remote right there, and you just do some work. And every time you see her like getting kind of fidgety or whatever, just pop her until she settles and go back to work, okay? And then you're setting her up for extended time, okay? So I don't ease dogs into things, because that's not what dogs do to each other.
No.
You know, if you go to the dog park with a dog, they don't like just like, here's a memo, please don't bark too loud.
These are the
No
rules.
mounting. Yeah, exactly. It's, I've seen where a dog will act out and then just 20 dogs will bum rush them.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we disagree with this. So it's the same thing here is, we're talking about the 5 to 10 minutes. If that's all you can do, that's perfectly fine. But if it's like, yeah, I work from home and I'm like able to do this, I'm like, go for it. Just do it. 4 hours, make her, right? So like when I got that dog that was screaming bloody murder, like they dropped him off like at 7 to 9 o'clock at night. So and I go to bed at 10, maybe 11. I'm like, I'm not gonna be sitting here babysitting this dog. 15, 20 minutes, and there was some harsh discipline, but he learned that that crap wasn't gonna fly, and then he went to kennel and stayed there overnight. So because I'm not gonna baby step him into it. I'm like, you're a jerk, and you bit 3 people already, and you have terrible separation anxiety because nobody wants to discipline you like you need to be disciplined. And so he met me. Okay, so I'm not trying to be mean, but I know right off the bat when I see these cases, which dogs I can get away with more subtle stuff, and which dogs I'm like, nope, it's not gonna work for you. It just needs to be blunt. Okay. Questions on this so far?
No.
Okay. So I'm gonna have you go take a step back, keep that leash in your hand. Good. Go ahead and bring it, come forward. I'm gonna have you take this door. You can just close it and open it. Yep. And open. Good. I'm gonna step back. Good, okay. So what you can do here is you can cue brake, and you're gonna give very light pressure on that
Brake.
prong collar. There you go, okay. I'm gonna have you just walk down, walk back, and you're gonna stop about where you're at, and then we're gonna tap for this end.
The tail's between your legs.
Okay. There we go. There she goes. Good. Go ahead and move back. Okay. See how when you move back, there's a little bit more forward motion? Okay. Go ahead and come in, open and close. Okay, go ahead and drop leash. You can walk back, you can try opening the door, closing it. So like something you can do, if you work from home, is like, let's say she's in there for a couple hours and you've corrected her a few times, is maybe take like 5 minutes, get up, go into the room, go to open the gate. Because a lot of times she's like, oh, you're gonna let me out. And you go to open the gate, she's gonna wanna forge through or push through. And then when you do that, you just close it and start remoting until she backs off to the back of the kennel. I go to open it again, close it, open it, close it, she holds, I lock it up, I leave, go back to work. So now I'm removing the meaning of you opening this kennel door. Does that make sense? Okay, so go ahead and come back in. I'm gonna pick up your leash.
Oh, now we're done.
Good. And cue brake.
Brake.
There we go. Good. And I'll walk back and then bring it back around.
Her tail's out now, that's good.
Yeah. There you go. Good. Only 2 taps on that one. That was good. Good. And then see how her nose is here. Step in, tap, tap. Good. Take a step back. Good, good. Hold. Right, good. So here, this you can accept because it's within the threshold. So on the first one, I saw that nose was just sticking out like this, right? And on this one, it's tucked up there. That's fine, okay? Once you start to see it really sink in, what you're gonna see in the center, she's gonna come all the way back here. Okay, she's gonna go as far deep in as she can, and then go into like laying down, and that's how you know like she
So
starts.
we use that side of the gate.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, want to switch it up?
No, that's kind of weird.
Sure.
Break.
Are you attacking her and then,
No.
oh, I was
I
like,
have
she's
all
like,
of it.
no, I'm saying her reaction is like so aggressive.
Yeah, because she doesn't want to be in here.
But it looks like you,
Like you think that?
yeah, like
Yeah.
her head yanked like crazy. No, I'm not judging you, I just, that's what it looks like, where she's like,
Yeah, no, it's because she does not want to be
Yeah.
there. It's the brain is very impulsive.
yeah. Where she's just triggered by whatever.
Yeah. There we go. That's fine. Yeah, that's good. That's even better than the other one.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
All right, so now you see here, like she doesn't really want to look
yeah.
to the gate, so that's good. I'm going to come in and open and close.
I mean, you, like, in your mind as like an owner, I'm like, I just want you to lay down. Like, I just want you to lay down and feel
Yeah.
comfortable.
But the discomfort of being in the, I mean, it's like being trapped in that room.
Mhm.
Just make yourself comfortable.
Yeah, right.
You gonna do that?
Right.
Right?
No, I know, but in your mind, you're just like, if you just
Yeah,
lay
yeah.
it down, it would be okay.
Yeah,
It
so-
would be better than whatever you're doing.
So that's where, like I was mentioning about that extended time in here.
Mhm.
So to give you an example, we had a board and train, he had him for 4 weeks, he was a 150-pound Black Russian Terrier. His name is Jaeger.
It's a big fucking dog.
Yes. And he was under when we got him, when we got him here, and he used to like jump and like just bark at the owner, and like he was like, and he's like intimidated, 150-pound dogs are like barking in his face. So he wasn't aggressive, but he was becoming what we would call domineering,
Mhm.
is he was learning to control more things, and it was creating a false confidence. So he wasn't dominant, it was a false dominance.
Mhm.
So one of the things that we do here is place command, where we put the dog on the dog bed, like that one over there, and they'll sit there for like 2 to 3 hours throughout the day as part of like the structure. And it's usually the first thing that we teach. And we had placed them, and for like the first week, for hours, mind you, for hours, he would stand. He wouldn't sit, he wouldn't lay down. He would just be standing on the dog bed, panting and salivating like crazy, because he had never been made to do something,
Mhm.
never been made to do something for an extended period of time, and the control was very unsettling for him, so it created a lot of anxiety, and the anxiety was overriding the fact that standing for long periods of time is uncomfortable.
Mhm.
After about a week, he like sat down or started finally sitting down, and everybody was like, oh my God, like Jaeger's finally sitting down.
Mhm.
And then 3 to 4 days after that, he actually started laying down.
Mhm.
And then just shortly after that, he started laying down and going straight to sleep, okay?
Mhm.
But the fact that we did like 2 to 3 hours at a time was emotionally and physically exhausting. Because you can only stay in an emotional state for so long. If you get angry about something, like you can't be angry about it 24/7. Like at some point you just let it go unless something triggers it, reminds you of it, or you see it again, right? But then again, like it triggers, but then after so much time it goes away, okay? So it's the same thing for this stuff here. This awkwardness, this anxiety, or this like just general discomfort of being in the kennel, she can only be like this for so long. So if you did, for instance, 4-hour time frames every day, you might see for the first few days she's sitting there panting and salivating and looking like this, and she's like maybe even shaking, clearly uncomfortable. And then after like several days, she goes in there, she's uncomfortable for a bit, and then she starts to lay down. But then she's uncomfortable while she's laying down,
Mhm.
right? But now she's in a more relaxed position, the discomfort is still there, but that's just part of the process.
Mhm.
And as you keep pushing it, we should see continuous, where she eases into relaxation much more quickly.
Mhm.
Because the brain already knows, like, I'm not gonna be able to go anywhere, so I might as well just make myself comfortable,
Mhm.
okay? So I definitely, if you can,
Mhm.
would do extended times in here.
Mhm.
Now, if she's gonna be in here longer than 2 hours, you do have to rotate the collar. So like maybe every 2 hours, you just make it a part of the thing where you open the structure, where you open the door corrector for trying to barge out and all that stuff, go in, readjust the collar, go from this side to this side, close it, go back, do some more.
Mhm.
Come back a couple hours later, to repeat that process until you start finding, like, I can open the gate, she doesn't try to barge out, and you can readjust it, okay?
So once we take that collar off, won't she not stay in there? But then she knows the collar's not under the trigger anymore.
Right. So that's why I was saying, like, in some cases, if, because you're gonna have to leave at some point,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because that's where the bar collar will come into play.
And the bar collar, I don't need to move around or readjust.
So there's an adapter you can pick up. So there's technically an adapter for this one as well. That's meant for extended wear. I get certain cases where the dog has to wear like 24/7. So the owner will get a comfort adapter, so they don't have to worry about rotating so much. They make the same thing for the bar collar, which I think, I'm like, when people use bar collar, they typically use them because they're going to work and the dog's gonna bark. It's gonna be like an 8-hour day. It's like, why don't you just make it a part of the system? But it's just more money, whatever. So all in, I think it's anywhere between 100 to 150-ish with the adapter. And you would put that on her, and that ends up replacing this, okay?
I just want to make sure, so.
Yeah. If you have any issues with it, because I did have a client recently who, she needed a bar collar, and it wasn't triggering, she called the company, and they sent her a new one, and everything worked just fine. But yeah, like her dog was like howling and barking in the kennel and stuff. And then as soon as she popped that bar collar on him, she was like, I came home, and he was fast asleep. I'm like, perfect, because it just triggered.
And then he was like.
Yeah, once they feel that, they're like, oh shit, like, nobody needs to be home.
And the bark collar, you can adjust the level of it, right?
Correct.
It's just not like you're not triggering.
Correct, I believe it's 1 to 10 levels.
Got it.
Okay, so if this was like 1 to 100, then you would just go in and jump to 10 essentially. Okay, there we go. So here, go to grab your leash, and I'll have you try to open the kennel here. Right, wait a moment, so you see how she moved a bit? And you see how awkward she
Yeah.
looks right from the face, right? Like, can I go? Good, that hesitation is good. That hesitation is what helps the anxiety stuff. Okay, we have to see caution if we want the dog to change their behavior. Going to the release, right?
Right.
A little bit of a nudge. There we go. Good. And we're gonna try one more.
She's so tired now. Yeah, I mean, I work from home, so it's probably, she could definitely sit for 4 hours in the kennel.
And what I suggest is if you're doing like a 9 to 5 from home, is from 9 to 5 she's in the kennel. Okay? Because realistically speaking, that's what it would be, right? Like, if you guys have to leave or something. And then what you can do is, maybe 9 to 1, and then you take her out for a quick break, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you bring her back in, kennel her up, and then she finishes, 1 to 5. I've been doing this with a lot of my clients. That's helped them a lot. Because most people are like, oh, I get to work from home, I get to be with my dog all day, until they try to leave the house. And then it's like, oh, the dog's like, where are you
Well,
going?
we don't. We basically bring her everywhere with us.
Have to, right?
Because she
Yeah.
goes to the bathroom in the house, and so we're like, we're just gonna bring her to the store, and she'll sit in the car,
Yes. Now, I will say the hardest thing about separation anxiety in terms of like kennel stuff to crack is peeing and pooping.
Yeah.
Okay? Because there's, you can't really correct the dog for pooping. I mean, you could try, but they may not associate it to the act of pooping, So that's why we're trying to, the problem isn't the peeing or pooping, the problem is the anxiety. So this here is meant to address the anxiety, which then in turn would lead to no peeing or pooping. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're hoping this will stop the pissing and shit.
Yes.
There's no guarantee though.
Correct. And I wouldn't worry about the bad stuff, like I get plenty of clients that feel bad, like, oh, the dog doesn't have a soft surface. I'm like, yeah, the dog keeps destroying it.
Yeah.
Like, the dog sleeps on the fucking floor.
Yeah, like, all the
Dog sleeps
time.
in the dirt
Well,
outside.
yeah, our other dog sleeps on the wood floor, so we're like, clearly they don't have a problem with wood.
No, and a lot of times they prefer it because it's cooler.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry about that. Now, like, let's say you decided down the line, like, hey, she's been really good about being in the kennel and not, like, being a brat. We'll give her something, right? Because she's earned it. Like, I don't care. But then if she destroys it, then I'm like, all right, screw you. I'm not gonna do anything because you.
When your
destroyed it.
dog's in the, this might be a stupid question, but all I'm thinking about is like a gerbil or a hamster. But like, your dog's stressed out and they're clearly like this, hopefully not for long, but you don't suggest like putting water or anything. I mean, I know that would help her go pee, but I just don't know.
Yeah.
Because you're like, they're stressed out, so do they need water or they?
She should be fine.
She should just, okay.
I mean, you could put like a tiny bit in there,
She pees for minute every morning. She
No,
doesn't
I
need
know.
any more water.
I know.
Oh,
I'm not lying, I timed it, a minute, 10 seconds.
what?
Shit, you not.
She pees like this close to the ground.
It's crazy.
It's like,
She's gonna get a UTI eventually.
yeah, she's,
Wow.
yeah, she's whacked. But the separation we also think is not, we think it's because we saved her from the circumstance, you know, so I feel like,
She doesn't think about that. It's more so her just being a brat.
okay.
So, yeah, dogs don't reflect, you know?
Like, I'm reflecting.
Yeah. Dogs are introspective, they're all about the here and the now.
Yeah.
Because, I'm just, there's something not capable of it, you know? So go ahead and pick up your leash. And then when you go to open your gate, correct, good. And instead of immediately releasing her, you're gonna take a step back, so just be careful not to put tension on that leash. Tap, tap, now here, towards, tap, tap, right. So what we did there was trigger, right? So important that you did not put tension, because if you put tension on her, she's clearly responding to the tension.
Yeah.
So you moved back, you did not put tension, that was all correct. But then she just took it as an invite of like, oh, you're moving back, you're giving space, I get to come out?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
And we're doing this all by default,
Mhm.
okay? So if you were to say no,
Mhm.
technically she can try to sneak out until you say no.
Mhm.
So if you're not watching her closely and you're not there to say no, she can do it.
Mhm.
And what we're doing here is, if you even think about doing it, automatically there is a correction. So the brain goes, well, there's no point in trying it because there's no warning, there's no cue. It's just if I try it, I get corrected.
Mhm.
Okay, it's a tiny, tiny little detail, but it means a lot when it comes to this kind of stuff. Okay, especially with behavior, I want the dog to relate to themselves. Like even thinking about trying to get out the kennel is going to garner a correction.
Mhm.
I'm just going to chill out.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm surprised she's doing this.
Go ahead and take a step back. Good. Go ahead and now you're going to say break and give some leash pressure.
Break.
Yep, I'm going to walk away with her and you bring her back.
Right on my heel.
She won. So when I was my last one, I didn't touch it at all.
I just.
She walked right in.
Yeah, I didn't touch
Both
it.
times, she stood over there too.
Now, what may happen here is because she's going in sans the tap,
Mhm.
is she might think, is this a real kennel command? Does that make sense? Because there's nothing put behind it, which is fine.
Mhm.
She walks in, no problem, no struggle, no problem. But then I'm expecting more likely to have issues with like wanting to get out when you leave the room.
Right.
Because there was no tap to start the process.
Right.
Because when you tap them when you go into something, they just come in like, oh crap, there was already discipline, right? But when they avoid it, it's kind of like, oh, well, can I get away with it then?
Mhm.
You know, which is part of the process.
Mhm.
So then, if you see this, that's perfectly fine. Just I would anticipate more likely she's going to want to try to forge or like, do her anxiety thing. When you're doing the extended period of time with her in the kennel and you're watching, spinning can be corrected. Licking the kennel can be corrected. Pushing at the kennel with their nose can be corrected. Biting at the kennel can be corrected. Whining, howling, barking can all be corrected. Okay? Because that's all an outlet of anxiety.
Mhm.
Panting cannot be corrected. Salivating cannot be corrected. Okay? Shaking cannot be corrected. If it looks like she's like trying to posture for a poop, you can try correcting to see if it stops the process. And you might even have to crank it to like really get them like wet, and then see what happens. But probably not going to really register in terms of her thinking like, oh crap, like pooping in the kennel is a bad thing because it's anxiety induced. Okay, but definitely keep an eye for any of those things. If she starts to pine a little bit, my suggestion is you just correct. Don't see like, well, is it going to get worse? Because it's allowing a little window, and then gradually it will become worse. I correct everything, especially if I have a dog like this, who pees and poops and can be destructive, is I'm just hardcore black and white, like nope, none of that stuff is going to happen. So they don't even get to 1. They're always at a 0. Okay? Questions about any of this?
No.
So super simple exercise. So you're going to have 2 things to work on this week. One is the send. That's what you were doing here. Okay? What I'm going to have you do is stop about this like that distance, 3 to 4 feet from your kennel, and when you can, sneak in those taps. Okay, the more taps, the better. We're not saying the word kennel right now because I want her to just think like, crap, when I see that gate open, I just want to go in there because I'm going to get tapped
So we should keep the gate closed then, when she's not in it, or do we want her to have the ability to just go in there and lay down if she wants?
That's fine, that's not, I don't have any issue with that. But definitely when you're gonna put her in the kennel yourself, where it's gonna be like, you're gonna go in there, you're not gonna move, is no word. Don't say crate, don't say go to your bed, don't say go to your home or whatever. I want her brain by default to think, when we're going to this kennel, I need to just run my butt in there because there's gonna be a hit. Because it just gets her thinking about like, I do not wanna be disciplined, which ideally will help prevent any of that separation anxiety stuff from cropping up. And close your door, you don't need to leave a leash on if she's gonna be in there, just keep the collar on, put your timer on for 2 hours, go in the other room, have your nanny cam, and then see what happens, okay? If she's doing really well, don't jump to no collar. We have to condition. So when are you going on your trip?
We're just for Thanksgiving, we're just going to a family's house.
Okay.
Like a family member's house, but we clearly have to leave all of our dogs, so we're kind of like, she needs to be put away from him.
Sure.
And they need to like not be in the same room together.
Gotcha, yeah,
But also we're gonna be gone for, probably 4 or 5 hours, so it's one of those.
yeah, so I would definitely push, just do a full, like as you would work, if you work 9 to 5 from home, from 9 to 5, you're doing that kennel thing, nanny cam, all that stuff, Monday through Friday. You can even do the weekends if you wanted to. The more you tackle this, the faster you're gonna get over it, so that it really preps you for Thanksgiving. And then if you wanna have the info for the dark collar, just to have and have it on her, so when you leave, hopefully everything's working like it's supposed to. I can send you that information as well.
Yeah, we bought the.
We have the
Oh, you already got it?
Yeah,
Cool, cool, cool.
We just haven't put it on.
We just don't have the little adapter.
Okay, I can send you that info.
Yeah.
If you would just send us an email or whatever, and I'll get it to you, because
Yeah.
I'll forget by the end of the day. Anything else?
No.
Awesome. Go ahead and break.
Break when you.
So work on that this week. And then, if anything pops up, if you have any questions, or maybe she's struggling with something, feel free to,